There's a place in the United States, a room built inside a building, inside a laboratory, that holds the world record for the quietest place on Earth. It is called an anechoic chamber. The walls absorb 99.9% of all sound. No echo, no reverberation, no ambient noise of any kind. Researchers who have spent time inside it report something extraordinary. Within minutes, they begin to hear their own heartbeat, their own blood moving, the soft electrical hum of their own nervous system. Sounds that are always there, have always been there, but are covered every moment of every day by the noise of the world sitting on top of them. In the silence, they hear themselves. And most people, when this happens, ask to leave. Because true silence, complete silence, turns out to be not peaceful, not restful, but deeply, profoundly, surprisingly unsettling. 5 words, one used by monks who chose silence as a spiritual practice, one used by astronomers studying the space between stars, one so achingly precise for a particular quality, of quiet that writers have been reaching for it for 400 years. After this episode, Very Quiet will feel like the loudest possible way to say nothing. Last episode, we talked about loudness. The deafening, thunderous, ear-splitting, booming, cataclysmic end of the spectrum. Today, we go to the other side. But here's what I need you to understand before we begin. Quiet is not simply the absence of loud. This is the mistake everyone makes. This is why Very Quiet fails so completely, because it treats silence as a subtraction, as loud with the volume turned down, as the default state that exists when nothing is happening. But silence is not nothing. Silence is something. It has weight, it has texture, it has emotional content that varies so enormously from one kind of silence to another that calling them all quiet is like calling the ocean and a glass of water both wet. Technically accurate. Completely useless. Think about this. The silence of a library, comfortable, consensual, full of the quiet industry of people choosing to be there, is nothing like the silence of a room after an argument has ended. The words have stopped. But the silence that follows is not peaceful. It is pressurized. It is full of everything that was said and everything that wasn't. It has a temperature. That silence is nothing like the silence of a forest at 5 a.m. before the birds, before the wind, the silence of the world before it has decided. To begin, which is nothing like the silence of a hospital corridor at 3 a.m, where quietness is not chosen but imposed, where silence doesn't mean peace, it means waiting, it means the held breath of people who need morning to arrive and are afraid of what it might bring. And none of these are the silence of an empty concert hall where the absence of music is itself a kind of presence, where the acoustics designed to carry sound instead carry its memory, the ghost of what was played here, still faintly resonating in wood and stone and air. 5 silences, all called very quiet by a vocabulary that isn't trying hard enough. Let me give you better. Out loud, quietly if you like. But say them. Word 1. Hushed. The room fell hushed. We spoke in hushed voices. Start here. Your first replacement, the quietness of people choosing to lower themselves. Hushed is not the absence of sound, it is the deliberate reduction of it. The collective, often unspoken agreement to become smaller, softer, less intrusive, to make room for something that deserves more space than noise allows. The etymology is simple and beautiful: to hush, to make quiet, to quieten, to soothe. The word itself sounds like the action hush the sound a parent makes to a frightened child in the dark, soft, sustained. A sound designed to replace all other sounds with itself. The cathedral was hushed, not empty, but full of people who had agreed without discussion to become quiet together. A hushed conversation in the corner of the cafe, close together, heads low, the kind of talking that doesn't want to be overheard. The audience went hushed in the final scene. Not silent, hushed, still breathing, still present, but contained. That distinction, not silent but hushed, is important. Hushed rooms still have people in them. They still have breath and heartbeat, and the small, unconscious sounds of human bodies existing in space. But those sounds have been turned inward. The volume of human presence has been reduced out of reverence or concentration, or the specific social awareness that something happening nearby deserves better than noise. Use hushed when quiet is chosen, when it is a collective act of attention. Ward 2. Serene. The morning was completely serene. There was something serene about the empty house. Now we add peace. Because serene is not just quiet. It is quiet that has resolved into something, quiet that has arrived at a destination. The quietness after turbulence has passed, after difficulty has ended, after the water that was rough has found its level and stilled. From the Latin serenus, clear sky, the specific quality of a sky with no cloud, no wind, no turbulence of any kind, perfectly clear, perfectly still, perfectly itself. Serene quiet is the quiet that doesn't need anything from you. It doesn't demand reaction. It doesn't contain threat. It is simply there, present, asking nothing except that you exist inside it for a moment without requiring it to be different. She had a serene quality that was almost unnerving. Nothing seemed to disturb her. She moved through chaos like it wasn't there. The lake at dawn was serene. No wind, no current. The mountains above reflected so perfectly below that you couldn't immediately find the line between world and water. There was a serene stillness to the old house, the kind that accumulates in places where the same quiet has been practiced for a very long time. The same quiet practiced for a very long time that is serene, not the quiet of absence, the quiet of a place that has learned how to be still, that has practiced stillness until it has become the natural state. Use serene when quiet has maturity in it, when it is not the pause between sounds but the arrival at peace. Ward 3, tranquil. The garden was perfectly tranquil. I've never felt so tranquil in my life. Serene and tranquil are close cousins, and distinguishing them matters. Serene is a quality of place or person, a state that has been arrived at and held. Tranquil is a quality of experience, of a moment in time. The feeling of being right now, in this specific instant, undisturbed, unbothered, the sensation of existing in a space where nothing is asking anything of you. From the Latin, tranquillus, calm, still, undisturbed. The word was used specifically for water, the tranquil sea, the tranquil lake, and it carries that aquatic stillness into every context it enters. The sense of surface undisturbed, depth present, but nothing breaking through. The village was tranquil in a way that cities rarely managed, not sleepy, not empty, just genuinely, unhurriedly at peace with its own pace. I sat in the garden for an hour, tranquil, not thinking about anything in particular, just there. There is something tranquil about early morning that disappears completely by 8 o'clock, no matter what you do. That last sentence disappears completely by 8 o'clock because tranquility is often temporary. It is a window, small, specific, available only when the conditions are exactly right. When the demands of the day haven't started yet, when the world hasn't remembered to be noisy. Use tranquil for the quiet of moments, the specific, temporary, precious experience of being undisturbed. Word 4, the monk's word, the astronomer's word. Stillness. A profound stillness settled over everything. She stood in the stillness and let it arrive. Now we go somewhere deeper, because stillness is not an adjective like the others. It is a noun, and I'm including it here, breaking my own format, my own rules, because stillness is the word this episode has been building toward, the word that earns its place not through grammatical convenience, but through what it carries. Stillness is the word monks use, not quietness, not silence. Stillness, because what they are seeking in their practice of silence is not the absence of sound. Any empty room can provide that, but the presence of stillness. The condition in which the mind, like undisturbed water, can become clear, can show you something that the disturbance of noise, external and internal, was covering. It is the word astronomers reach for when they describe the particular quality of a perfectly clear night at altitude, far from city light, far from human noise, when the ski becomes not something above you, but something around you, when the distance between here and the stars seems briefly traversable. It is the word musicians use for the silence before the first note. Not absence, anticipation. The stillness that is itself a kind of sound. If you're listening correctly, there was a stillness in the forest that felt prehistoric, older than human presence, indifferent to it, continuing. He found stillness in the early morning before anyone else was awake. Not peace. Exactly, something more active than peace, attention with nowhere particular to direct it. The grief had a stillness to it that frightened her more than tears would have, the stillness of something that had gone very deep and wasn't coming back up. That last sentence, the stillness of something that had gone very deep, because stillness is not always peaceful. The anechoic chamber, the quietest place on earth, produced not peace but discomfort. The stillness of hearing your own heartbeat, the stillness of the self without the protection of noise. Stillness is what remains when everything that was covering something else has been removed. What it reveals depends entirely on what was being covered. Use stillness for the quiet that has substance, that has presence, that is not the background of experience, but the foreground of it. Word 5, the writer's word, 400 years waiting. Hushed. No, we use that. The word I promised you, 400 years of writers reaching for it, the word so precise for a specific quality of quiet that once you hear it, once you really hear what it contains, you will wonder how you ever described this particular silence without it. Muted. No, close, but not it. Subdued. Warmer, but still not quite. Whisper quiet. A phrase, not a word. The word sepulchral. A sepulchral silence fell over the room. The corridor was sepulchral, cold, still, and absolute. Say it, sepulchral. 3 syllables, each one heavier than the last. From the Latin sepulchrum, a tomb. Sepulchral silence is tomb silence. The silence of sealed places, of stone rooms where no living thing breathes, of the specific particular quality of absolute quiet in a space that exists outside the normal passage of time. This is the word writers have reached for 400 years when they need to describe the quiet that is not peaceful but solemn, not restful but absolute, the quiet that has the weight of endings in it. The abandoned house had a sepulchral quality, not frightening exactly, but final, the silence of a place that had finished being lived in. The judge's chambers fell sepulchral as the verdict was read. No one moved, no one breathed audibly. The silence had the quality of something being sealed. There is a sepulchral hour around 4 a.m. when the night has exhausted itself and the day hasn't begun, and the city produces a quiet so complete it feels borrowed from somewhere else, from some older, emptier version of the world. Borrowed from somewhere else, from some older, emptier version of the world. That is sepulchral, the quiet that reaches back, that contains history inside it, that makes the present moment feel briefly like it is sitting inside something much larger than itself. Monks have sat in this silence. Astronomers have heard it above the clouds. Grieving people have found themselves inside it without choosing to enter. Musicians have stood on empty stages at midnight and felt it rise from the floor. And writers for 4 centuries have been trying to name it correctly. Sepulchral. Now, the word is yours. Use it carefully. Use it rarely. Save it for the silences that deserve it. Every episode, a story. Last episode, noise. A concert, everything loud. Today, the morning after, the same person, the same city, but it is now 5 a.m. and they cannot sleep. They get up, move through their apartment without turning on lights. The city outside, impossibly after last night, is quiet. They stand at the window. The street below is empty. Somewhere, very far away, a single car, and then nothing. The apartment is hushed, the specific quiet of a space where someone is trying not to disturb the silence itself, where even their own breathing feels like an intrusion. They make tea, sit at the kitchen table. The garden outside, if you can call it that, a small square of city green, is tranquil, still wet from last night's rain, the light beginning, somewhere behind the buildings to change. Nothing is asking anything of them, not yet. SERENE, the 20 minutes before the day, remembers what it was going to do. And then something shifts. The quality of the quiet changes, deepens. The city, which had been merely asleep, seems for a moment to have stepped further back, to have receded, to have offered up something older than its own noise. A stillness. Not comfortable, not peaceful, exactly. Present, absolute. The feeling of the self alone inside something very large and very old. They sit inside it without moving. And the silence, the particular silence of 5 a.m. in a city that has temporarily forgotten to be a city, in an apartment where all the ordinary sounds of a life have agreed to pause, is sepulchral. Not frightening, not sad, just final, complete, the silence of something that has been sealed. They sit inside it until the birds begin. And then the world remembers itself. And the silence is gone. Hushed, tranquil, serene, stillness, sepulchral. 5 words for the 5 depths of quiet. Each one a different distance from the noise. Your challenge this week is the most interior one I have ever set. Think of a silence you remember. Not an absence of sound, a specific silence, a particular quiet that had a quality, a texture, a temperature, a feeling that you have carried with you. Write 1 sentence. One of today's 5 words. Your real silence? I read every comment. I reply to everyone. And I will tell you, of all the challenges across this series, I'm most curious about this one. Because the silences people remember reveal something. Come and show me yours. Today, you learned 5 words that replace very quiet and actually carry the weight and texture of what real silence is. Hushed, quiet, chosen collectively. The volume of human presence turned inward. Serene quiet that has arrived somewhere. Peace that has been practiced until it became permanent. Tranquil, the quiet of this moment undisturbed the window before 8 o'clock. Stillness, the monk's word, the astronomer's word, what remains when everything covering something else is removed. Sepulchral, tomb silence, 400 years of writers reaching for it, the quiet that contains endings. Next episode, very cold. And I need to tell you now, one of the words for cold was used by a man writing in a blizzard. He was alone. He was running out of supplies. He was not certain he would survive. And the word he wrote in his journal that night, for the cold that was closing in around him, was so precise, so exact, so perfectly chosen, that when his journal was found, decades later, readers said they felt the temperature drop. Just reading it. If this series has changed the way you move through silence, if you have started noticing the quality of quiet around you, the different textures of it, the way it varies from room to room and hour to hour, subscribe. Because that is what language does when it is working properly. It doesn't just help you describe the world. It teaches you to see it. I'll see you in the next one.